Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 6%. Chapter 21. Small team, warm dinner, 1/4. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. It's not what it used to be. Therefore, she has not been carried back by Lin Yan for a long time. Boss, it would be nice if we kept doing this. Sell things every day, go home and sleep well. ... Isabel rested her head on Lin Yan's shoulder, talking in a rambling manner, turning into a chatterbox. Such an ordinary life, don't you feel bored? No, as long as the boss is by my side, I'm happy. Hear Isabel's words. Lin Yan was a little surprised. He didn't think about Isabel, since, like him, he had no pursuit. Lin Yan never thought of becoming a hero in this world. If he could, he wouldn't feel bad about living like this in the underground street all the time. But Lin Yan knows that this kind of life is almost impossible in the world of Titan. Just because of a few bottles of good wine, he was targeted by others. Half an hour later, Lin Yan carried Isabel on his back and returned to the underground castle. As Lin Yan's base, there are many people secretly guarding around the underground castle. In addition, the outer periphery is where members of the hunter group live. As long as something happens, everyone can gather quickly. The two guards of the underground castle, members of the hunter group of the castle, saw Lin Yan coming back, and respectfully opened the gate of the castle. ... Inside the castle, a pine fire was burning in the fireplace. The flickering fire danced on the dry logs. The warm breath is transmitted from the fireplace to the whole house. Advertisement. In the kitchen, the smell of the steak being scorched, the smell of the heated milk, and the smell of toasted bread are mixed together. Lin Yan was busy in an orderly manner in the kitchen. Isabel is wearing an apron to help out. As for Levi and Fran, they were playing with barbecue in the yard. Each has a division of labor and is preparing for dinner. Levi, the meat is ready, it will burn if you bake it again. Lin Yan baked the bread quickly, and the smell of barbecue came with the wind. With a slight smell, he knew how well the barbecue was roasted. Put the baked bread on the dinner plate, he reminded loudly towards the outside. Levi concentrated on roasting the meat in front of him. It's like facing a big enemy. Although he is usually a ruthless character in battle, cooking is a headache for Levi. Hear Lin Yan's words. He quickly lifted the leg of lamb grilled on the charcoal and put it on a wooden plate. Boss, the leg of lamb is ready, what should we do now? Bring it in, go set the plates with Fran, and leave the rest to me. Looking at the leg of lamb in front of him, Levi didn't know what to do next, so he had to ask Lin Yan for help. Hearing Lin Yan's words, he took the plate and went to the kitchen. He was at a loss as he had nothing to do for a while. Lin Yan looked at Levi's blank look, held back his smile, and told Levi to set the tableware. He then began to split the leg of lamb swiftly. Chua 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 chua, a boning knife, in Lin Yan's water, seems to come alive, sticking to the bone along the tendon. 3 or 2, just pick off the roasted lamb. Amazing. On the other hand, Isabel stared blankly at Lin Yan's quick movements, his eyes full of admiration. Advertisement. Every time she sees Lin Yan cooking, she feels pleasing to the eye. 4 plates. Soon Lin Yan divided the mutton into 4 portions, each of which was almost the same weight. After portioning, he quickly made some small embellishments on each plate. Soon, with the cooperation of the 4, dinner was ready. Under pale yellow light, clean table, milk, toast, roast leg of lamb, and fruit, as well as steak, beer, etc. was placed before the people. The smell of food is also the scent of turpentine from burning pine wood in the fireplace, and a touch of wine. Levi and Fran, who were sitting around the dining table, swallowed wildly. Even Isabel, who is usually gentle and elegant, couldn't help it, drooling. Although Lin Yan rarely cooks. But every time the food is made, it is very delicious. Therefore, every time Lin Yan just cooks, everyone is happy like a festival. Okay, see you are hungry, let's start. Seeing the 3 of them staring at him helplessly, Lin Yan couldn't help laughing. Then he signaled to the 3 of them that they could start eating. Get orders from Lin Yan. Levi and Fran picked up their forks and cut up the food. It has been a long time since they have eaten the dishes cooked by Lin Yan himself. The 3 still remember that when they were not yet 10 years old. The happiest moment of every day is when we wait at the table for Lin Yan to prepare the meal. However, such days, after they were 12 years old, there will be no more. After that, under Lin Yan's coercion, all 3 of them learned some basic cooking skills from Lin Yan. Advertisement. However, in the end, both Levi and Fran were only able to cook the food. Isabel, on the other hand, has inherited Lin Yan's good craftsmanship. Learned a lot. Really, it's so delicious. It would be nice to have such delicious food every day. Levi cut a piece of steak and chewed it in his mouth. Looking at the dazzling array of food in front of him, he was a little dazed. In just 6 years, Lin Yan led a group of them who were originally like wild dogs. Orphans scrambling for leftovers in the underground mall. Now, you can eat meat every day. Looking back, Levi finds it a bit unbelievable. If only meeting Lin Yan. He, Fran, and the other orphans of the hunter group must have starved to death long ago. Even if you don't starve to death, you will get some diseases because you don't get sunlight all the year round. In addition to food, members of the hunter group can go out to the ground to shine in the sun every day. To be honest, this is a very luxurious thing. Boss made it himself, of course it's delicious. Speaking of which, if it weren't for the boss, I might never see the sun in my life. Fran took a sip of milk, lost in memory. He still couldn't forget that desperate afternoon. When he was only 8 years old, Fran and a partner, who have never seen the sun since they were born, decide to escape from stairway number 11 to see the sun. But because they had no money to pay the toll, they were beaten half to death. His friend died instantly from his injuries. In desperation, he dragged his friend's body down the number 11 staircase. Celebrate the 7-day-long holiday of National Day and enjoy reading books. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge activity time, October 1st to October 7th. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report, 6%. Chapter 22. Add points again, strength surges 2 quarters. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Competing with several wild dogs on the street for the dead body of his friend. Because of a reminder, Lin Yan's things fell off, and he was finally saved by Lin Yan. Lin Yan rescued him from the siege of a group of wild dogs and began training in the hunter group. So like Levi, Fran has long regarded Lin Yan as his big brother. Recalling the past, Fran's nose couldn't help but feel a little sore. Okay, a big man is actually crying. I'm not crying, it's just that the milk is too hot and I'm sweating. Lin Yan ate the steak slowly. Rolling his eyes, he saw Fran, who was eating bread with his head down, and tears fell onto the plate. Can't help being a little surprised. In Lin Yan's impression, Fran has always been a blonde boy who loves to laugh. Lin Yan still remembers seeing Fran for the first time. Besieged by a pack of wild dogs and almost killed him, but the boy didn't shed a single tear. But today I couldn't stop crying. Soon the meal was finished, and Lin Yan saw that there was not even a single crumb left on the plate. Satisfied with a slight nod. What Lin Yan hates the most is people wasting food. Everyone in the hunter group knows about this. The awe of food is what he has always insisted on. After eating, Isabel obediently cleaned up the table. Then the three sat down. Start to wait for Lin Yan to talk about business. Lin Yan never likes to talk about other things when eating. Advertisement. Eating quietly is the greatest respect for food. Levi, starting tomorrow, all training will stop first. All the wine in the distillery is sold on the black market. As long as it is not less than 10 gold coins, I will sell it vigorously. Fran, go out tomorrow and let the brother who is in charge of the ground on the 11th staircase rent a private house near the 9th staircase. Lin Yan knew that this time he should be targeted by a big underground businessman. He also thought about killing Chris directly, but if he killed one Chris, another Chris would come out. Therefore, Lin Yan intends to keep the head of Chris for the time being. Lin Yan planned to transfer the property a long time ago, so this time, he wanted to transfer the property outside the city. As for those who want to benefit from him, he will liquidate them one by one. After Lin Yan assigned the task, Levi and Fran quickly left to carry out Lin Yan's plan. Lin Yan also returned to his room. Ding. Congratulations to the host, the points progress has reached 100%, points plus 1 inch. Then Lin Yan opened the system panel. System panel. Host. Lin Yan. Current world. Attack on Titan. Constitution. 8 points. 130%. Skills. Cooking LV1, Fighting LV6, Forging LV5, Brewing LV2. Lin Yan could foresee that things would not be that simple this time. Advertisement. So he called up the system panel and started adding points. System, add 1 point to your physique. After Lin Yan chose to add points, the voice of the system sounded again in his mind. Ding. Congratulations to the host, the physique has increased by 1 point, and the physique has reached the level of a 6-meter level with scale titan. The moment the system sound sounded, Lin Yan felt the strength in his body soar. Boom boom boom. He could feel his heart beating more forcefully, like beating a drum. The breathing in the lungs became stronger, and even the stomach became warm. Vision has been greatly improved, and blood flow is accelerating. Lin Yan felt that his strength alone had increased many times. At least the current Lin Yan is not weaker than the general Wugo Titan in terms of strength. In addition, physique also includes recovery, vitality and so on. It also means that as long as his head is not chopped off, he will not die from ordinary injuries. Immediately, a tingling feeling spread from his brain to his whole body. Lin Yan can feel it. In my own memory, and in my body. A large number of muscular fighting instincts and conscious fighting instincts are quickly adjusting to adapt to the physical changes just now. In a short period of time, Lin Yan's momentum has undergone a huge change. If it is said that he gave him the feeling of a wolf before. Now he is a tiger ready to go. Advertisement. Even just sitting there can exude a faint coercion. Click. The cup in Lin Yan's hand shattered instantly. The increase in strength was too fast, and Lin Yan hadn't adapted to it for a while. He just gently picked up the cup and it was crushed by him. Let me clean up. Lin Yan just wanted to collect the fragments of cups all over the place. Isabel just walked in quickly from the outside. Boss, you can also arrange some tasks for me. I want to go out on missions like Levi and the others. Isabel was talking to Lin Yan while packing up the glass that Lin Yan crushed. After so many years of training, her strength ranks among the entire hunter group. Apart from Levi and Fran, Isabel is the strongest one. So after Fran and Levi were sent out, Isabel was going to find Lin Yan. She came back with Lin Yan today, so she naturally knew the situation the hunter group was facing now. So, Isabel, I want to contribute to the development of the hunters. Take some of the pressure for Lin Yan. Lin Yan has been protecting her all these years, and she has done very little for Lin Yan. So Isabel has always been a little guilty, and she also wants to prove to Lin Yan that she has grown up. This is probably the stubbornness of young girls. Celebrate the 7-day-long holiday of National Day and enjoy reading books. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge activity time, October 1st to October 7th. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report, 7%. Chapter 23. Killing Intent, Complicated Situation, 3/4. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Near the 11th staircase. In a manor, a 4-story castle is brightly lit. The guards in the castle are patrolling back and forth. Under the cover of night, carriages pulled by cages covered with black cloth slowly drove out from the number 11 underground passage. Slowly enter the manor. Even though it was covered by a black cloth, there was still a humming sound coming from the black cloth from time to time. It was determined that the cage was some kind of animal. Be honest. A muscular man 2 meters tall with a whip in his hand. After hearing the whimpering sound in the convoy, he snapped the whip in his hand and slammed it on one of the cars. The whip instantly made a hole in the black cloth on the car. Inside, a girl in ragged clothes and dull eyes can be vaguely seen. After a whip, the whimpering convoy was completely silent. Are you an idiot? Be careful next time, these goods are delicate and tender. If something goes wrong, how can I sell it for a good price? Advertisement. Chris's carriage came from a distance. After parting with Lin Yan, he visited the military police regiment again. Complete the things Mr. Luo Bofu entrusted to him during the day. From a distance, he saw his subordinates whipping towards him, a batch of good things he had just bought from the underground black market recently. His heart ached immediately. There are several high-end goods among these people. After the scolding, he moved his gaze to the back of the convoy, pointed to some of the cages and said excitedly, "Send those little things to my room." Hearing what Chris said, the muscular man nodded again and again, and began to direct the groom to do what Chris said. Late at night, in Chris' mansion, Diluc, I have something for you to do. There is a man named Lin Yan in the 235 castle on the east side, you take a few brothers to catch him back. It's called Isabel, put it in a cage, it will be of great use to me. Chris's ball-like body is tucked into a chair. In front of him was a muscular man, kneeling on one knee, with a huge broadsword behind his back. Kesley cut off a piece of dark red meat with a knife and fork, and then began to enjoy chewing. Luke, who was kneeling on the ground, couldn't help but tremble when he saw 2 heart-shaped pieces of blood still in the plate. He thought of the girl he had just sent into Chris' room. This subordinate will do it. Without waiting too long, Luke quickly left Chris's castle with his broadsword on his shoulders. Advertisement. As the first thug under Chris. Luke used to be the overlord of the black boxing market in the underground street, and the number of people who died in his hands could be 800 if not 1,000. Therefore, he didn't care about arresting a few people. And he just met Lin Yan and Elizabeth today, and they looked very weak. East Underground Street. Levi and Fran sit on the roof of a private house. After receiving Lin Yan's order today, they quickly made arrangements for their subordinates. Then back to the East District Underground Street. Why don't you go to sleep? Can't sleep, how about you? Like you, this time we may have to leave the underground mall. Levi has already noticed something through Lin Yan's arrangement. He had a hunch that this time he might encounter big trouble. In the past 6 years, it has not been all smooth sailing, and they have also encountered a lot of troubles. But no matter how big the troubles are, Lin Yan can always lead them to deal with them. But never like this time, they began to transfer some things in their underground industry. Operating in the East End for many years, several workshops were established by them alone. It would be a lie to say that there is no emotion. So, the two lost sleep. Although they have thought about leaving the dark place of the underground street countless times. Advertisement. But when they were about to leave now, they found in their hearts that they had already regarded the underground street as their home. Why didn't the boss kill that guy? Fran scratched his head, feeling a little distressed. Although he is not weak in strength, he is still a bit weak in planning. So he couldn't understand why they didn't choose to kill Chris directly when they were so powerful. Hearing Fran's words, Levi pondered for a moment, then said slowly. Maybe the boss doesn't want to lose too many people. I checked, and Chris is backed by a congressman named Luo Boff. Killing Chris doesn't work at all, and I also saw that they were in collusion with the military police regiment. Although Levi is only 15 years old now, he has been taught by Lin Yan for many years. He is much smarter and wiser than he was at the same age in the original book. Known as a short titan, he was 28 years old before joining Survey Corps. After that, he became famous within the wall in a short period of time, not only because of his strength, but also because of his intelligence. Therefore, even if he was only 15 years old, he could see that the purpose of Lin Yan's arrangement this time was to understand the current situation clearly. Looking at Fran's increasingly confused expression, Levi went on to say, "If we kill Chris, the military police regiment will come after us. Evidence is not even required, and we will be wanted. Because we are civilians, and behind the other party are parliamentarians." Hearing Levi's explanation, Fran's originally confused expression became relieved. He also understood the purpose of Lin Yan's order this time. Celebrate the 7-day-long holiday of National Day and enjoy reading books. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 7%. Chapter 24. Massacre 4 quarters. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Someone is coming. Just when Levi finished speaking and was about to lie on the roof to sleep for a while, he heard a bunch of footsteps. In the underground street, very few people come out at night. So Levi and Fran immediately became alert. The two touched the knife on the waist. A total of 12. Yes, there is progress. Fran lay beside Levi, and he listened carefully, distinguishing the number of enemies from subtle places. Levi on the side praised in a low voice. The two of them, as the two major generals under Lin Yan, often go out to perform tasks together. The reason why the hunter group was able to gain a foothold in the East District was because they killed them with knives. Let the two of them be the two knives of the hunter group, although they are only 15 years old. But the number of people who died at their hands was at least over 100. Therefore, when they heard the sound of footsteps, a trace of excitement flashed in the eyes of both of them. For a while, try to catch alive. There is a man named Lin Yan, be careful not to kill him. There's another named Isabel. Luke's deep voice sounded in the silent street. Although he had lowered his voice, Levi and Fran on the roof could hear him clearly. Hearing Luke's words, Levi's murderous aura almost overflowed. This group of people dared to think about their big brother. Boom boom boom. Levi drew out his two knives, stepped on the roof, and rushed towards the few people in the darkness. Fran followed closely behind. Like Levi, he held the knife tightly in his hand. Advertisement. The two stepped on the roof and made a thumping sound. The footsteps were hurried and dense. Who's on the roof? Luke on the street heard hurried footsteps on the roof. He shouted violently, and then took a step back subconsciously. PFF'd. Just as Luke backed away, an accomplice in front of him was split in half by Levi. Hot blood sprayed directly onto his face. When Dilakay's broadsword subconsciously blocked his chest. Immediately there was a harsh metal impact sound. Huge power was transmitted from the blade to his tiger's mouth, and under the huge force, his tiger's mouth was instantly shattered. The broad knife, which was nearly 1.5 meters long and 40 centimeters wide, almost fell out of his hand. Damn it. Luke fought back before he could wait. The black shadow that attacked him just now has disappeared. There were 12 of them, and 4 of them were lost in the opponent's round of attack. In the dark, Levi sheathed the notched knife. He reluctantly took out the 2 knives that Lin Yan gave him. He usually carries 4 knives. In the first round of fighting just now, the 2 knives he slashed at Luke already had gaps. In the darkness, Fran and Levi looked at each other, and they both looked at the person in the opposing team with a kerosene lamp in their hand. Of the 4 people Fran and Levi killed just now, 2 were carrying kerosene lamps. They grew up in the darkness of the underground city. More comfortable in the dark. Therefore, the 2 instantly had a common attack target and action plan. Advertisement. The enemy is coming, gather together, don't separate. Although they only fought once, Luke can be sure that both of them are masters. Therefore, Luke was at the moment when Levi and Fran rushed towards them again. He made the decision to defend. The remaining 8 people stood back to back and formed a circle. Click, click, bang. The moment Levi and Fran rushed over, 2 crisp clicks sounded, and then everyone fell into darkness. Then the sound of metal falling to the ground sounded. How can that be? This was built with a lot of money. Who is the other party? In the dark, Luke touched the broad knife that had been cut in half, and he couldn't help but feel cold behind his back. You know, the thickest part of his broad knife is a full 1.5 centimeters thick. But it was cut off like this. This time they lost 2 people again, leaving only 6 people. Tick-tock. The night was eerily silent. Sweat dripped from everyone's faces onto the blood-stained floor. The smell of blood in the air, mixed with the perennial smell of decay in the underground street, is disgusting. After 2 rounds, he still didn't see the face of the enemy. But 6 people died. As time passed, everyone's fear grew. Boom, boom, advertisement, thump thump thump. Each other can even hear the sound of their own heartbeats accelerating. Locke knew that if this went on, they would never win again. Get out of here, bastard! So he shouted violently, trying to boost morale. Da 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 da. As soon as Locke finished speaking, dense footsteps sounded. He could feel a group of people in the distance rushing towards him. Before Luke could make a decision, a black shadow attacked from the darkness. As soon as he raised his right hand, there was a sharp pain, and then his right hand was cut off. Immediately afterwards, he felt pain in his legs, and he, who was 2 meters tall, fell to the ground with a bang. His legs were also chopped off. In the end, who is it, bastard? Luke moved on the ground, he could feel his blood leaving his body quickly. His whole body had already begun to lose consciousness, and his whole body slowly became cold. He was enveloped by death. It's this guy. It seems that some people can't bear it anymore. When Luke was about to die due to excessive blood loss, he saw a young girl holding a kerosene lamp, followed by a young man coming to his side. Vaguely, he could see that the other party was his target, Lin Yan and Isabel. Hearing Lin Yan's words, he wanted to say something, but he couldn't speak anymore. Because his head was stepped on by Lin Yan. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 7%. Chapter 25. Anti-killing, the plan begins 1/4. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Boss, these guys belong to Chris. According to what they said before, they are here to arrest you and Isabel, the boss. Levi stood beside Lin Yan and reported the situation to Lin Yan. The 2 knives he was holding were still bleeding. He was the one who killed Luke just now. Under Lin Yan's 6-year teaching, Levi's fighting skills have become very superb. Among all the members of the Hunter group, except for Lin Yan, he is the strongest in terms of fighting skills. However, compared with Lin Yan, he is still only 15 years old, and he is still far behind. After all, Lin Yan's LV6 fighting skills and 60 years of fighting experience are not as simple as talking about it. No, I. Feeling that he was going to die if he continued like this, Luke struggled fiercely. He doesn't want to die. Luke tried hard to open his mouth to talk. But Lin Yan's feet were as heavy as a mountain. Stepping on the side of his face, Luke couldn't even open his mouth. After struggling for a long time, he uttered a few words with difficulty. Let me go, I can help you. No need, you can go on your way. Hearing Luke's words, Lin Yan replied lightly. Immediately, Lin Yan's foot rolled over, and with a puff, Luke on the ground became silent. Lin Yan didn't want to attack Chris immediately because he wanted to transfer property. But the other party was so eager to court death. Advertisement. Hush. Soon the Hunter group rushed over to support the crowd and began to clean up the scene. They moved quickly, some were carrying the corpses, some were washing the blood. The blood-stained streets were cleaned up in the time of a cup of tea. Apart from the faint smell of blood, it is completely impossible to see that there has been a fierce fight here. From the skilled movements of everyone, it can be seen that everyone has done such a thing. In fact, if it weren't for these people, they would have died near Lin Yan's underground castle. Lin Yan would not spend so much energy to let people clean it up. The kerosene lamp was burning very brightly, and the flame made a screeching sound. Isabel held the lamp, raised her head slightly, and looked at the tall Lin Yan. Over the years, her height has always only reached the height of Lin Yan's shoulders. Even though she felt that she was growing very fast, she still could only maintain this appearance. 4 people stood by the side of the road. Levi's 1.6 meter tall looks like a half-grown child next to Lin Yan. For his height, Levi has also been troubled. After all, he has always regarded Lin Yan as his pursuit target. Seeing Lin Yan contemplating, the 3 of them waited quietly without speaking. Lin Yan looked at the time, it was 4 o'clock. The 4 o'clock underpass opens. It was dawn at 6 o'clock, and the military police regiment started patrolling at 8 o'clock. Lin Yan has been waiting for the arrival of 4 o'clock. Crack. Advertisement. Crack. ... In the originally silent night, the underground street door opened one after another. Lin Yan closed the pocket watch in his hand. He looked at the people who had disposed of the corpses and stood neatly by the side of the street, waiting for his order. Kill everyone in the Chris faction before 6 o'clock. Before 8 o'clock, everyone went out through different passages and met at the stronghold outside the capital. Fran and Isabel are in charge of moving the untransferred property, and Levi and I will meet Chris. ... After giving the order, the 3-dimensional mobile devices purchased from the black market were distributed. The Hunter group quickly separated. 50 people were divided into 2 teams, and 1 team was responsible for transferring the remaining supplies. A group of people followed Lin Yan and Levi and rushed towards the number 11 staircase. Break. Lin Yan is on the move. He pressed the button of the 3-dimensional motorized device at his waist, and then the steel cables at Lin Yan's waist shot out. The mechanical sound of the cable unsheathing sounded. Immediately afterwards, a straight black line shot towards the wall of the tall building in the distance. Crack. This is the sound of steel cables piercing the wall. In the sight of everyone in the Hunter group behind Lin Yan. The device that can clearly see Lin Yan's waist has been connected to the top of the front wall. Before everyone could observe carefully, Lin Yan in front of him suddenly soared into the air. Advertisement. Shua. Like a phantom, Lin Yan's waist immediately bent into a bow shape the moment he was lifted into the air. Then a wave of inertia directly pulled him to the position where the steel cable fixed the high wall obliquely in front. Boom. Standing on the high wall with both legs slanted, Chen Yancho supported the wall with one hand, and held the hilt of the sword with the other. He turned his head to look at the people on the ground looking at him. I'll take a step first, you guys have to hurry up and follow. Although it is the third time to use the three-dimensional mobile device. But from the moment Lin Yan pressed the button, he felt like waving his arms. This batch of three-dimensional mobile devices was bought by Lin Yan from the black market a month ago. They were all eliminated by the army. Although old, but under Lin Yan's repairing and tidying up, these equipments are rejuvenated again. Although these equipments were all eliminated by the army, many of them were deliberately depleted by some people in the Legion. Many are still new. Therefore, the price is not cheap. After all, these things are contraband. Once discovered, there is a risk of being killed. So just buying this batch of three-dimensional mobile devices consumed more than half of Lin Yan's savings. However, Lin Yan doesn't care now. Now, what he needs is to improve everyone's fighting ability. Everyone in the Hunter group has been conducting simulation training before, and there are not many opportunities to use real three-dimensional mobile devices. The really big practice starts from this month. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 8%. Chapter 26. Strike, the fear of the underground merchant 2 quarters. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. During these years in the underground street, Lin Yan has already figured out one thing. Blindly compromising will only make you passive. In addition, his current strength and influence have initially grown. So it's time to get out of the underground mall and go where the sun shines. In the underground street, Lin Yan has completed his initial strength accumulation. Break. Lin Yan ignored the people on the ground who were still staring at him dumbfounded. He pressed the button in his hand, and the steel cable shot out again, disappearing in front of everyone. Boss, is this really just the third use? Levi looked at Lin Yan's disappearing back, he couldn't believe it. As the deputy head of the Hunter group, he is the best one in the Hunter group to use the three-dimensional mobile device. A month ago, he started the actual combat training of the three-dimensional mobile device. But even he couldn't be as fluent as Lin Yan at the beginning. Break, 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 ... Without thinking too much, Levi followed, pressed the button, and the steel cable shot out. Behind him, all the hunters also followed. Although a month ago, everyone started the actual combat training of the three-dimensional mobile device. But now they have been doing high-intensity simulation training and a lot of balance training for the past 6 long years. Therefore, it is very fast to get started with the three-dimensional mobile device. In just 1 month, everyone has become very proficient. Advertisement. With the assistance of the three-dimensional mobile device, everyone's speed is very fast, almost like flying in the air. 20 figures pierced through the darkness of the underground street and galloped towards passageway No. 11. In the pitch-black night, passageway number 11 has been opened a little. Click, click, ... A few big bald men with long knives hanging from their waists were in a daze under the light of kerosene lamps. The hand was pulling the black and thick iron chain in his hand unhurriedly. As the iron chain was pulled by them, the gears on the stone door began to rotate, and the huge heavy stone door was slowly hoisted up. The rattling sound of gears echoed in the empty night. Nerf, use some strength. I can't even move this side. Asshole, my side is tense, you must be using all your strength on the bed. 2 sleepy-eyed men reeking of alcohol were cursing and tugging at the chain. As the guardians of passageway number 11, they usually only need to use their mouths to get a lot of money. Many women who have no money but want to go out will also bribe them with their bodies. The underground mall is such a chaotic place. Break, break, ... Just as the two were swearing, the screeching sound of steel cables rubbing against metal rang out densely. The 2 people who often guarded the underground mall immediately recognized the sound of the three-dimensional mobile device. The 2 looked at each other the same way, and they both saw doubts in each other's eyes. Advertisement. When did the people in the military police regiment become so diligent? Don't they patrol at 8 o'clock, arrive at 9 o'clock, and start at 10 o'clock? Just when the 2 were puzzled, 20 people wearing three-dimensional mobile devices appeared in front of them. You are not from the military police regiment, what are you? Before the 2 of them could finish asking the question, they were chopped down to the ground by the Hunter group. He didn't stop much, dealt with the corpses, and cleaned up the personnel stationed at No. 11. Lin Yan led the crowd towards Chris Manor. The other side. Fran and Isabel split into 2 groups and began to transfer the last batch of belongings. Isabel went out from the 9th passage, and Frank went out from the 8th passage. The carriages of the Hunter group drove out of the passage one after another. Isabel, who was sitting in the carriage, frowned slightly, she wanted to fight with Lin Yan more than transporting supplies. stopped the carriage for a routine inspection. While Isabel was meditating, the carriage was stopped by the guards at the exit. Royal Capital, inside Chris Manor. The whole castle is still brightly lit. The guard at the door held the knife and leaned against the wall behind him, drooling from the corner of his mouth, his eyes half closed. Inside the castle hall, food residues, wine, meat, and some indescribable smells permeated the air. On the highest floor of the castle, Chris was drunk and lying on the bed. Boom. There was a loud sound of glass shattering, and it exploded. Advertisement. Immediately, a tall, tough-faced boy broke in through the window with a knife in hand. Appeared in front of Chris's bed. Boy, it's you. What are you going to do? The shards of glass hit Chris's face, and the severe pain woke him up from his dream. Chris got up from the bed in a panic. With one hand, he grabbed a petite body with dull eyes beside him, and blocked it in front of him. Seeing Lin Yan's expressionless eyes, Chris's mung bean-like eyes were full of fear. Don't mess around, guard, guard. I'm a nobleman, boy, I'm a nobleman. Watching Lin Yan take a step forward, Chris yelled in panic. He could feel the undisguised killing intent in Lin Yan's eyes. He hid behind his petite body and leaned against the wall tightly. Try to buy time. Innocent. Lin Yan looked at Chris, who was still in the carriage, pointing fingers at him before. Now it has turned into a shivering rat hiding in a corner, which makes it a little funny. He didn't want to waste any more time. Boom. Lin Yan's feet gradually grew bigger in Chris' eyes. Immediately, a huge force was transmitted from the petite body in front of him to him. Immediately behind him, the thick wall cracked instantly, and Chris was embedded into the wall. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 8%. Chapter 27. Wanted, missing Isabel 3/4. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Click. At the same time, Chris heard the sound of bones in his chest cracking. His huge, ball-like belly sunk deeply, like a deflated rubber ball. Severe pain spread to all limbs and bones, and his mung bean-like eyes squeezed out from his fat facial features. Puff. The moment Lin Yan withdrew his foot, blood spurted out from the mouth of Chris, who was kicked into the wall by Lin Yan. Like a water polo squeezed out, it sprayed far away. Kai. Lin Yan didn't look at Chris. He took out a white towel from the cabinet in the bedroom. He wiped his boots carefully until all the blood was wiped off before he stopped. He made a mistake in that kick just now, and some blood was stained on it. After wiping his boots clean, Lin Yan stood up, ready to leave. Thank you. A faint voice sounded from the corner of the wall. The girl who was treated as a meat pad by Chris closed her eyes in relief. The first time Lin Yan saw her, he already knew that the girl was dead. Her world was not completely dead. So when Lin Yan stepped out, he didn't dodge, and directly helped her out. 4:30. The thick night still enveloped the whole world. Inside the manor. Advertisement. The fighting sound just started and ended quickly. The thick smell of blood filled the air. Reporting to the head of the regiment, the enemy has been eliminated, and there are no casualties on our side. Lin Yan came out slowly from the castle. The members of the hunter group stood straight on the square, waiting for Lin Yan's next order. Levi walked up to Lin Yan and reported the battle situation. According to the original plan. Yes. When everyone heard Lin Yan's words, they quickly dispersed and quickly disappeared into the night. One day later, King Capital. The sky was gray and the sun was buried in thick clouds. Indistinctly, thunder and lightning could be seen brewing and gathering. The dull thunder resounded throughout the sky. Sparse drizzle fell from the sky. Strip away the remaining temperature between heaven and earth bit by bit. After entering winter, the weather in the capital is getting colder and colder. Pedestrians on the street shrank their necks and hid in heavy coats. Their steps were small and hurried, driven by the cold wind blowing from time to time. Be careful. Don't miss any place. Search it for me. A line of soldiers rode across the street quickly, bringing a cold wind and blowing the pedestrians on the street to avoid. Many people's hats were blown off. Advertisement. Some people who were busy avoiding fell to the ground in a panic. Looking at the military police regiment leaving in the dust, anger flashed in the eyes of the frightened pedestrians. Then he hid in his cover again. As if nothing had just happened. The coat of arms hanging on the chest of the soldiers is a shield and a unicorn, and they belong to the military police regiment. What happened? The military police regiment came out. I heard that a man named Lin Yan robbed the property of underground businessmen and massacred many civilians. Seeing the people from the military police regiment walk away, several civilians began to discuss. One day ago, the big businessman Chris was killed. Immediately, a large number of nobles and businessmen launched a protest, questioning whether the capital was safe. The military police regiment, which manages the daily security of the capital, was naturally involved in the center of this incident. Soon the military police regiment found the murderer of this incident. An underground gang called the Hunters. As for why, it is determined that the Hunter group did this. It is said that it was because the head of the Hunter group originally helped Chris manage the winemaking industry. Later, because the industry was too profitable, Lin Yan, the leader of the Hunter group, became greedy, killed his owner, robbed the treasure and fled. After the military police regiment searched underground to no avail in the past few days, they focused their attention on the ground of the capital again. So the massive search began. Any news from Isabel? A street corner. A tall boy with a tough face was walking with a small man holding an umbrella. The two are Lin Yan and Levi. Advertisement. After coming out of the underground, Lin Yan lost contact with Isabel. After waiting at the appointed place for a long time but not seeing Isabel, Lin Yan, who had already left the capital, came back again. There is no news yet, and the 6 members who left with Isabel have not been found. Looking up at Lin Yan, who was frowning, Levi reported the latest news to Lin Yan. To find Isabel sooner, the core members of the Hunter group, as well as everyone who was dormant in the capital, took action. But there is still no news of Isabel. Notify all members to evacuate. You and Fran also withdrew from the capital and waited for me at the stronghold outside the city. Hear Levi's debriefing. Holding a black umbrella, Lin Yan pondered for a moment, then made a decision. He couldn't put his team in danger just because Isabel was alone. So Lin Yan gave the order to evacuate. Now the members of the Hunter group are too young. Even if they can kill all directions in the underground street, but in the face of today's military police regiment, their 50 core members, plus more than 200 people in the periphery, are simply not enough to watch. Especially in the capital, if the evacuation is not timely, they are very likely to be caught in the urn. Let's go. How about you, boss? Hearing Lin Yan's order, Levi raised his head and looked at Lin Yan, his eyes were full of worry. Soldiers from the military police regiment are now patrolling everywhere, searching for their group. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 8%. Chapter 28. The royal family who was cheated, the fierce battle in the royal capital 4 quarters. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. Seeing Levi's worried expression, Lin Yan patted him on the shoulder and said lightly, I'll take Isabel back. Follow orders, Levi. Hearing Lin Yan's words, Levi lowered his head and stood stubbornly on the spot, holding his hand tightly on the handle of the knife. He didn't want to leave, leaving Lin Yan in the capital, and taking huge risks alone, he couldn't do it. Believe me, Levi, our outposts are just as important. I don't want to live a life of fighting wild dogs for food again. Watching Levi standing there, refusing to leave, Lin Yan felt a warm feeling in his heart. He knew very well what Levi was thinking. Even if Levi will be called a short titan in the future, he is still too small now. Staying does not help Lin Yan much. Hearing Lin Yan's words, Levi hesitated for a long time, and finally turned and left helplessly. He knows that once Lin Yan decides, no one can change it. In addition, Levi thought for a while, and rationally told him that staying would only add chaos to Lin Yan, so he chose to leave. After walking a few steps, Levi looked back at Lin Yan and said seriously, Boss, you must come back. The light rain in the sky is still falling. Lin Yan held an umbrella and walked towards the number 9 underground passage. Isabel and the 6 members of the Hunter group finally disappeared in the 9th passage. Levi and Fran had also looked for it before, but they didn't get much. Lin Yan wants to go look for it again. Outside passage number 9. Advertisement. Take off your hat. No, next. You, open the carriage. No, the next one. ... People from the military police regiment are looking around with Lin Yan's portrait. Although there are not many people who know Lin Yan, they are not too few. Since the small shop became popular, Lin Yan has come into contact with many people every day. So I saw people from the military police regiment checking around with portraits of him and Isabel. Lin Yan didn't find it strange. He lowered his black umbrella and held the knife at his waist. The investigation is still going on, surrounded by people from the military police regiment. Soon the interrogation came to Lin Yan. Lin Yan held the handle of the knife, ready to strike. You, give me the umbrella. There are traces of suspects. Just when a military police regiment soldier walked up to Lin Yan to ask. A member of the military police regiment on a horse appears on the street. His words stopped all members of the military police regiment who were searching. Notify the other teams immediately to surround them. Afterwards, the soldiers who were just beside Lin Yan and some other people from the military police regiment quickly disappeared in place. The central area of the capital. There are many castles and palaces here, and it is an area where nobles live. There are manors dotted with various rare plants everywhere, and gorgeous carriages come and go everywhere. Inside a luxurious and graceful castle. Advertisement. The aroma of wine permeates everywhere, a little too strong. Mr. Luo Boff, I need an explanation. Wine worth 10 gold coins, why can't you even sell it for 1 silver coin now? A middle-aged man with a thick neck and a brown beard had a cold tone. In the hall in front of him, wine bottles were broken and the wine spilled all over the floor. This man is Duke Kirby of the royal family. A few days ago, Luo Bofu told him that the wine that Pixis brought to the royal banquet before came from his small shop. After discussing with each other, the two decided to recycle all the wine on the market and hoard it. Then raise the price of the wine. Manipulate the market and make a fortune. Therefore, Kebi spent a lot of money to buy the wine that Lin Yan sold in large quantities and entered the market, spending nearly 40,000 gold coins. The result was within 2 days. The brewing process and many recipes of the wine they collected originally spread around. Alcohol prices plummeted. The two of them paid back 10 gold coins for the wine, but now no one wants even 1 silver coin. Not only did the Duke of Kebi not get what Luo Bofu said he should have in return, but he also lost money in a mess. Hearing Kebi's words, Mrs. Luo Bo smiled bitterly. If it is a loss, he is the biggest one. This time he promised too much profit sharing, but in the end, Lin Yan gave it to him. Not only did it not gain anything, but it also offended a large group of people. The large amount of inventory that Lin Yan threw out caused the loss of nearly 100,000 gold coins to several forces he had befriended. In the past few days, he has been apologizing everywhere. Advertisement. Originally, he had a little family background, but in just a few days, his savings from corruption were consumed in this incident. Duke Kebi, please give me some time. That kid dared to trick us. I will definitely make him spit out all the money. Luo Bofu lowered his head and looked at Duke Kebi in front of him, his tone full of begging. No matter how heavy the price is, he will catch Lin Yan this time. My lord, members of the hunter group, we have a clue. Just as Mrs. Luo Bo was looking sad, a guard trotted in from the outside to report the situation. Hearing the report, Luo Bofu's face flashed with joy. As long as Lin Yan can be caught, all his losses can be recovered. Passage number 11 of the underground street. On the ground. Break. In an alley, the sound of the steel cables of the three-dimensional mobile device came and went. The two teams were chasing on the roof of the house. One side is the Survey Corps who just returned to the capital. The other party is Elizabeth and the others that Lin Yan is looking for. Dang. The two sides were fighting, weapons colliding together, making the sound of clanging metal. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 8%. Chapter 29. Survey Corps, enemy meets 1/4. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. The people of the military police regiment are quickly gathering here. If you look at it from a height, you can see it. There are 3 teams that are quickly encircling the battle positions of the hunters and Survey Corps. Give up resistance. You are surrounded. The 13th head of Survey Corps, Elvin, is the blonde man who later brought Levi and others into Survey Corps in the original book. At this moment, led 2 members of Survey Corps to chase Elizabeth and the 3. Originally Elizabeth came out with 6 people. But in order to transfer the property, she brought 2 people out to attract the pursuers, and the other 4 were responsible for transferring the property. Alvin Smith with blonde hair. Looking at the 3 Elizabeths who shuttled freely among the buildings in the distance. The surprise in his eyes could not be concealed. Although he seldom stays in the capital, he still knows the underground street very well. The use of 3-dimensional mobile devices by the 3 of Elizabeth, as well as fighting skills and physical fitness. Comparable to soldiers in Survey Corps. Whereas the intelligence said, they are just a group of punks. Even the core red-haired girl of the trio is not weak compared to some veterans who entered the Survey Corps. Therefore, out of love for talent, he has been observing and not killing. He is investigating the strength of these people to see if it is possible to introduce Survey Corps. Spread out and run to different places. Elizabeth looked at the 3 people who were approaching, and she gave an order. Originally, if they followed Lin Yan's plan this time, they could leave safely. But when Elizabeth went out from passage number 9. Advertisement. Because they were embarrassed by the guards of passage number 9, they wanted to detain their carriage. Inside the carriage are the belongings of the hunter group, which is very important. Therefore, several people fought with the guards of the passage. Not long after the battle started, the Survey Corps returned to the city. To be on the safe side, several people went back to the underground street to hide. After hiding for a day, when I went out again, I was chased by the military police regiment again. As ordered. Hearing Elizabeth's order, the 2 people around Elizabeth fled in different directions. They are not running around. The hunter group has a stronghold in the capital, so they are all running towards the stronghold. As long as they return to the vicinity of the stronghold, someone will help them get out of trouble. Don't worry about those 2, just chase that girl. Erwin quickly judged that Elizabeth was the core of the crowd. So, he gave up the other 2. Focus on chasing Elizabeth. Break. Erwin activated the 3-dimensional mobile device and chased after Elizabeth. Driven by the steel cable, his body constantly changed positions in midair, getting closer and closer to Elizabeth. Call out. Just when Erwin was about to take down Elizabeth in one fell swoop. A huge spear rushed out of the ground and shot towards Erwin. Before Erwin could move in the air, he was shot by the spear and nailed straight to the wall next to him. Can't move. Who the hell is that guy? Advertisement. Looking at his body that was almost pierced. Erwin was horrified, sweat dripping down his back. If he hadn't twisted his body just now, he might have to explain here. The moment Erwin was hit, he saw a black-haired boy on the ground disappear in a flash. Nailed to the wall by steel spears. Erwin watched Elizabeth's disappearing back in the distance, and he couldn't help feeling depressed. Cha-cha. With the short knife drawn, Erwin slid open his clothes, looking at the black spear that drove him into the high wall near his waist. And the finger-wide cracks on the high wall, he was lost in thought. This power has surpassed human beings. Erwin, are you okay? Seeing that Erwin was nailed to the wall, his two partners had no intention of chasing Elizabeth. The three-dimensional mobile device was activated and came to his side. Check out Erwin's situation. Inside the alley like a maze. Lin Yan was running fast. Even if he does not rely on three-dimensional maneuvering devices, his speed is unmatched by ordinary people. After learning that Isabel was surrounded, he rushed towards him. One step faster than those in the military police regiment. Seeing that Elizabeth was about to be captured just now, he almost exhausted the steel spear in his hand in desperation. Seeing Isabel leave, Lin Yan's original worry faded a lot. What are you eating? Even a punk can't catch you. Member Luo Bofu, please pay attention to your words, the opposite side is definitely not as simple as a punk. Advertisement. Just as Lin Yan was walking through the alley, he heard a name among the voices from the street. Mrs. Luo Bo. Lin Yan stopped near the corner. Life is so strange sometimes. Lin Yan didn't expect that this guy who was manipulating behind the scenes to carve up his property was finally tricked by him so that he couldn't find the north. It actually appeared in front of him. Looking at Mrs. Luo in the carriage in the distance roaring at the military police regiment. The corner of Lin Yan's mouth curled up. He searched the ground. Soon, he found a weapon he liked very much. On the street. A carriage stood in the middle of the street. Mrs. Luo poked his head out of the window of the carriage and yelled at the soldiers of the military police regiment. He had heard that the hunter group had been found, so he took a carriage to see it with great interest. But just after arriving, he was told that the hunter group had escaped again. How could Luo Bofu, who had raised hopes, accept it? If he can't catch Lin Yan, then the 100,000 gold coins cheated by Lin Yan will fall on his head. Even if they sold their family, they still couldn't make up 100,000 gold coins. Out of his exasperation, he became angry with the military police regiment. Call out. Just as Mrs. Luobo was spitting out angrily, there was a rapid sound of piercing through the air. It's like tearing up the space. Upgrade points from Attack on Titan. Report. 2.9%. Chapter 30. Opening up land, a wider sky 2 quarters. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Advertisement. As soon as Luo Bofu raised his head to look at the situation, he shot a fist-sized rock head-on. The speed is frightening. Boom. Luo Bofu's head stuck out from the window of the carriage. Before it could retract, it was hit by a stone and burst open. White brains and bright red blood mixed together, and the juice splashed everywhere. Chasing. Looking at Mr. Luo Bofu's battered head. The little boss of the military police regiment, who was scolded by Mrs. Luo just now, didn't care about the aggrieved just now. He led the people to chase in the direction where the stone was coming from. The death of a congressman is a big event. If he didn't handle it well, he would probably have to be kicked out of the military police regiment and go to open up land and farm. But when they hurried into the alley, Lin Yan was nowhere to be seen. 1 day later, on the outskirts of the capital. On a low hill, there are sparse low trees. Because it is winter, the leaves of these trees have fallen off. Only the bare branches and trunk remained. A crow with dull feathers was prowling for food. It flapped its black wings with difficulty, and quickly flew into the woods in the hill. Advertisement. It finally landed on a fence wall in a small yard. In the small courtyard, a wooden house is erected against the hill. Blue smoke is coming out of the skylight in the middle of the cabin. The smoke lingering around the skylight dances around, bringing a touch of life to this lonely land. Gah! The crow with some dim feathers looked at the little white hand in front of him suspiciously. Then he quickly grabbed a piece of bread, flew away immediately, and began to enjoy it from a distance. Elizabeth and Lin Yan stood in front of the window of the wooden house, watching the crow take away the bread, and Elizabeth withdrew her white palm. Looking at the crow peeking at her from afar, Elizabeth had a happy smile on her face. She has loved birds since she was a child, and envied that birds can soar freely in the sky. So after seeing the crows fly to the window, Elizabeth divided some of her own bread. Give up your belongings next time. As long as you can come back safely. Lin Yan took the bread that Elizabeth gave him, and talked to Elizabeth while chewing the bread. After successfully reuniting with Elizabeth at the stronghold, listened to Elizabeth's story. Only then did Lin Yan know what happened these few days. Elizabeth is responsible for the transfer of finances is actually not much. It won't take long for Lin Yan to make money. But in order to protect their belongings from being lost, Elizabeth and the others ventured back to the underground shopping mall. If it weren't for their familiarity with the underground street. Advertisement. They were discovered during the 1st Military Police Regiment search underground. But those are earned by the boss through hard work. Hearing Lin Yan's words, Elizabeth's heart was full of warmth. She felt the bread in her mouth getting sweeter and sweeter. Elizabeth joined Lin Yan's hunter group very early on. She also looked at Lin Yan from only a few gold coins. It has made the hunter group rich step by step. In the early days, Isabel remembered that she often followed Lin Yan to sell maltose on the ground. At that time, she was still crying because she couldn't sell sugar and was rejected. It was Lin Yan who taught her how to sell those candies and how not to care about other people's eyes. She also saw that Lin Yan was still full of confidence even after being rejected for selling things again and again. This deeply motivates her. Therefore, Isabel is particularly concerned about this property. Because she knew that every gold coin was earned by Lin Yan. Take a break after eating. We'll set off when it gets dark to open up the land. Lin Yan took a piece of jerky, broke half of it and handed it to Elizabeth. Some time ago, after deciding to build other strongholds, Lin Yan had an idea. He decided to live in the northern part of the Wall of Sheena. The first time the Titan broke through the wall was in the south. Therefore, going north is the safest option. Lin Yan doesn't want to go to the south to participate in the bloody drama of the Aren family. Advertisement. Watch how his two mothers eat each other, and how he eats his own father. So Lin Yan spent some money and bought a farm in the north. Some members of the hunter group had already settled there a long time ago. Elizabeth felt a little sad when she took the jerky that Lin Yan gave her. Looking back, she and Lin Yan lived in the underground street for many years. Although the environment of the underground street is harsh, there are too many good memories there. Boss, can we go back to the capital in the future? Of course, believe me, we can go back in a short time. Lin Yan looked at Elizabeth's downcast look and rubbed her head, his tone unquestionable. Now he is not strong enough to ignore everything. But Lin Yan believes that one day, the world is so big that he can go wherever he wants. Gah, Elizabeth, divide the meat in your hand into 2 portions. Passed it to the crow who looked at her eagerly after eating the bread. Hearing Lin Yan's words, she became happy. If one day, they can return to the capital again, she wants Lin Yan to carry her through the dark alleys again. Return to the warm underground castle. There are memories of her entire childhood. Gah, after eating Elizabeth's food, the crow flew up, across the low hills, and into the wider sky.